she's sick. So thanks to come back for the afternoon session. So we have the pleasure to have our project officer of RIS4CIVIS, and so he will say a few words, presentation to know what next for the for the Alliance and research in Alliance. So, Jorge Molina, please, the floor is yours.
Does it work? Yes, it works. So thanks very much, and thanks very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here today in the final conference of the RIS4CIVIS project. I'm sorry that I missed the morning session, but you know that we have a big event tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, that I assume that many people here are attending tomorrow. It was my intention to come this morning, but I will remain in the afternoon. So my name is Jorge Molina. I work at the European Research Executive Agency of the European Commission. I work as a project advisor in Unit C4 of the agency, which is the unit dealing with, responsible for managing two programs in Horizon Europe, which are the Research Infrastructures Program and the Reinforcing and Enhancing the EU Research and Innovation System, which is better known as ERA. So I'm working there as a project advisor. I can tell you that I'm in charge of a broad portfolio of projects. Around 50% of the projects that I'm responsible for are SWOFs projects linked to European University Alliances. So I have like 14 or 15, and RIS4CIVIS is one of them. So I'm proud to be the project officer of RIS4CIVIS. Yeah, I think I'm the third one or the fourth one, I don't know. Also very happy to see familiar faces here today. So I have been asked to talk about the future of SWOFs and about the future of the research and innovation dimension of European universities. But I think that before talking about the future, maybe it's worth it to work about the past, to work about the present, and to start from the very beginning by understanding what a European University Alliance is and what has been done so far since 2019, when European universities were first launched. No? So European University Alliances, you know, you are very much familiar with it, are transnational alliances between higher education institutions that basically aim to develop long-term cooperation, primarily at the level of education, but also with links to research and innovation, right? So by developing this long-term strategic and sustainable cooperation, these European universities aim to improve the international competitiveness of the higher education institutions in Europe, but also to promote European values and European identity. You know that these alliances include all types of higher education institutions across the EU and beyond. I mean, comprehensive universities, research universities, universities of applied sciences, universities of arts, so on and so forth. But they also work in cooperation with other stakeholders beyond the field of education. It could be the private sector, including SMEs and startups, the public administration at the local, regional, or national level, civil organizations, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So the European universities has a clear mandate to implement an integrated long-term joint strategy for education, but without forgetting the links with research and innovation. Yeah. So to achieve that, you have put in place joint management and governance structures by pooling different kind of resources, from human resources, data and services, infrastructures, etc. So the ultimate goal is European universities enabling access to inclusive and high quality education, where also students can get a degree by combining studies from several EU countries, and also to stimulate joint research and innovation, ideally in line, you know, with the digital and green transition. So over time, European universities, and it hasn't been that long since they were launched, only 5 years ago, But the European universities have become an integral part of the Erasmus Plus program, the previous one, at the end of the previous one, but also the current one. Yeah. So everything started in 2017, 6 years ago, when the Council called for the creation of European universities by 2024. So these Council conclusions were followed by the launch of the first call for proposals of Erasmus Plus by the European Commission in 2018. And as a result of that, 17 university alliances were selected. Then there was another call in 2020 with 41 universities active. 2022 was, I would say, was a especially important year because the European Strategy for Universities was adopted, and that was followed by the Council conclusions. So up to date, we have 50 European University Alliances active, and also a call for proposals which is open. There's now a call for proposals, the Erasmus Plus 2024, which is opened and which aims, together with the rest of alliances, to reach up to 60 European universities by mid next year, involving more than 500 higher education institutions from all over the world, right? So that's happening right now. So what is coming next, and I will talk about the future further in my presentation, is that after the European Strategy for Universities was adopted in 2022, the Commission services are working now together with alliances and member states in designing an investment pathway, I would say, investment pathway, to support sustainability of European universities up to 2028-2029. You may know that there will be a call for proposals, Erasmus call for proposals in 2026, and there will be another call for proposals in 2027, precisely to ensure sustainable funding of the European University Alliances. So the main source of financial support for European universities, you know, it's Erasmus Plus. So far, I can tell you that since 2018, around 1.2 billion, with B, billion euros, have been invested by the Commission in European university alliances, mostly through Erasmus, 5 call for proposals since 2018, but also through Horizon 2020, with 82 million, through the SWOFs program, but also the EIT, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, through the Hey Innovative Initiative. So we are like covering the education dimension through Erasmus, the research dimension through Horizon 2020, and also the innovation dimension through the EIT. So, but that's a huge amount of money put on the table for the European universities. Also, you know that the alliances have been able to extend the initial 3-year duration pilot of 2019, 2020 to 4 more years, you know, after the last year's call for proposals. And they will also have the possibility to extend for 2 more years in 2026, 2027, yeah? So if you look at it and you think, hey, we have European universities that have managed to get more than 20 million euros only in 4 years. You know, the 5 millions of the first pilot, then up to 14 millions of the other call for proposals, plus 2 from SWOFs, plus 1 point something from the EIT. So that's a significant amount of resources, yeah? But next to this, next to Erasmus Plus, Horizon 2020 in this case, and the EIT, we also have other dedicated funding streams that European universities can benefit from. And I'm thinking, for example, again of Erasmus, but Erasmus for mobility. Erasmus for mobility of students, staff, you know, and yeah, I mean, Erasmus, for example, Actions K1, okay, just for mobility, which is on top of that. And of course, we have other funding streams which rely more on the side of European universities. And I'm happy to see, I was discussing lunch break, I'm happy to see that CIVIS managed to get some national funding, which is a good thing, because actually national and regional funding, such as ERDF or next generation EU funds, whatever should be and must be in the future another funding stream to secure sustainability of European universities. And that's in the direction in which the Commission is working now, no? To create that administrative structure that allows European universities also to access and to leverage funding by accessing other funding streams rather than EU funding, pure EU funding. So complementing the Erasmus Plus action, in 2020, the Commission launched through the work program Science with and for Society, the so-called SWOFs of Horizon 2020. It launched a coordination and supported action, which was titled Support for the Research and Innovation Dimension of European Universities. And basically, as the title already says, the goal of this call was to reinforce the research and innovation dimension of European universities, which, you know, through Erasmus Plus was more onto the education angle. So this call tried to reinforce the research and innovation dimension. How? By using European universities as a pilots to, on the one hand, experiment on institutional transformation. I mean, it wasn't money directed to researchers or researchers' teams, but to the institution to reform, to transform institutionally organizations from the research and innovation angle in synergy with the education mission that, that the linked European University has, but also to identify synergies between Erasmus Plus and Horizon. And that's another exercise that we in the Commission internally are having, conversations with Erasmus Plus, between Erasmus Plus and also Horizon, how can we find synergies, to cover not only education, but also research and the innovation side. So, that this coordination, this Horizon 2020 coordination and support action was very much targeted. That means that beneficiaries had a name and a surname. And you could see that from the work program. It was directed to the 41 university alliances that were selected in 2018 and 2019, and RIS4CIVIS is one of them. Yeah. So this call was launched in 2 pilots. One pilot targeted to the 17 university alliances funded through the Erasmus Plus call for proposals 2019. RIS4CIVIS is there, and then a pilot 2 directed to the 24 European University Alliances funded under the Erasmus Plus call for proposals 2020. And a total of 39 projects were selected and funded, so covering most of the European universities from those first 2 call for proposal, Erasmus call for proposals. Yeah, so we have these 39 SWOFs projects. I can tell you that in tomorrow's event, 33 will be participating, which it's really impressive that most of the SWOFs projects will be present tomorrow at the big event. So just before going to the future. So as I'm mentioning in my previous slide, the goal of this call is quite clear, which is reinforce the research and innovation dimension of European universities. And for that, something was clearly required, which was define an institutional transformation agenda. As simple as that, as complex as that. The goal, the call called to universities to define a transformative institutional agenda covering 7 areas. Research and innovation, which is actually the backbone of the call for proposals, the common agenda, that would be the skeleton. Resources and infrastructures, human capital, cooperation with the non-academic sector, and in particular, the academia-business collaboration, open science, citizens and society, and joint infrastructures. So basically, the first element, which is the backbone of the call, which is the definition and the design of a common research and innovation agenda. So Basically, this agenda, just to make it simple, which is not simple, is to help institutions to focus on specific areas of research, research and innovation topics, and foster collaboration among researchers around those research and innovation topics. Once the common agenda is done, it is implemented through an action plan, which sets out clear objectives, activities, resources needed, target, and timeline for implementation. So the common agenda, you know, should be ideally designed by everybody involved in the research and innovation activities from the institution, from researchers, research managers, admin and support staff, and so on. So again, this is the backbone of the call for proposals. In terms of infrastructures, we include here both large-scale infrastructures, but also research outputs, and also research services. So everything is considered here, infrastructures, and human resources as well, dedicated to this. We know that the sharing of research infrastructures is not something easy. Actually, it is quite complex. And I can tell you that, you know, from the REA perspective and seeing my colleagues working in the research infrastructure sector, it's really, really, really complex. But here, I have to acknowledge RIS4CIVIS practices, which have been actually labeled as a good practice. You know that we published a report in REA. We published a report on the progress of the first pilot of the SWOFS projects in May this year, and our experts identified a number of good practices among the SWOFS projects, and the work that RIS4CIVIS has done in this transformation module is remarkable in the way not only of the platform that you have, but also, for example, on the initiative of an infrastructure label. You know, it is something that other alliances don't have yet, and that could be used as a good example, you know, for others to emulate, or for others, you know, to find inspiration on that. In terms of human capital, this should include also brain circulation within the organization or among universities, and also the gender dimension here. And this area has at its core the aim that research talent should be rewarded and recognized as a way of strengthening human capital, yeah? And researchers should be offered the possibility to follow an effective professional pathway, you know? So careers need to be flexible, research careers need to be flexible, need to be inclusive, and need to be supported by recognition and reward. And this takes me also to the fourth transformation module, which is reinforcement of cooperation with non-academic sectors, yeah? Because both areas, strengthening human capital and cooperation with non-academic sectors, is interconnected. So by seeking strengthening human capital, that involves also rewarding researchers by means of recognizing their cooperation activities with the non-business sector. I mean, not reduce the research activity only to research and teaching, but also to recognize in the career path collaborations that researchers can have with the non-academic sector, but also with outreach to society, that in many occasions is not recognized, and that also, you know, can hamper even, you know, the willingness of researchers to cooperate with the non-academic sector, okay? Here, another good example and good practice that has been highlighted or flagged from the RIS4CIVIS project is the support program that you have designed, the RIS4Careers, yeah, through which you are supporting very much, correct me if I'm wrong, but very much focused on early career stage researchers and PhD students as well. So this is something that you cannot find in all alliances, you know, and I have to congratulate you for that, because it's really a good practice that can be also, be a source of inspiration for other university alliances. In terms of open science, you know that since 2016, open science is a policy priority for the Commission, which is and it's been realized mainly through project funding. Well, you know that open science practices are mandatory according to the grant agreement of EU-funded projects, yeah. But also in Horizon Europe, and especially under the European Open Science Cloud Partnership, yeah. Again, I would like to remark a number of practices developed by RIS4CIVIS, not only the mapping analysis of policies and practices on open science among the member organizations of your alliance, but also the different case studies that you are running on training, for example, the Open Science Award or the pilot on research assessment. So it's a very good job done in that transformation module. And also in relation to citizens and society, when we try to link academia with citizens, we can see that universities and alliances are at different development stages and at very different levels of readiness for public engagement, yeah? Which is not the case of RIS4CIVIS, because actually RIS4CIVIS, again, and this is also another good practice, even though it is not reflected there in green in my slide, but you have a very interesting dedicated case studies on science communication and citizen, you know? So this is also something to be acknowledged, and this is part of the many successes that you have achieved so far. Okay, so what about the future? What about the future? Well, as I mentioned before, since the European University Strategy was adopted, the European University on Strategy was adopted in 2022, the Commission services are working on, together with the alliances and member states and other stakeholders, in designing an investment pathway for European universities up to 28-29, you know? So basically, this will work to stimulate a comprehensive funding approach supporting the education dimension. That means that the Commission is working on supporting the education dimension. It's also looking on the research and innovation dimension. So an IOS is being put on that. But I would like to stress again the fact that this investment pathway that is now currently under development really stresses the needs of finding synergies with national and regional funding. National and regional funding. So for the moment, what I can tell you is that around 1.05 billion euros from Erasmus Plus have been invested. During the period 2021-2027, there are 1.1 billion euros allocated to European universities. That means that there is still some funding from Erasmus Plus available for the rollout of the European universities. And that takes me that, you know, in 2026 and 2027, there will be an open call for proposals, open calls for proposals for Erasmus Plus to ensure sustainable funding for universities up to 28-29. What about SWOFs? Okay, the bad news is that SWOFs won't be continued as such, as we know it. I mean, the SWOFs was designed very much targeted to a cluster of specific projects, which European University Alliances, that were the 41 European University Alliances funded in Pilot 1, Pilot 2. That will not continue. I mean, in the midterm, short-term, midterm, there are no plans of publishing calls so much directed to European universities, but that doesn't mean that there is no funding available to reinforce the research and innovation dimension of European universities. Indeed, there is. It is not that much targeted, it is more open, but there is. And let me give you a few examples. Some of them you might be familiar with. So we have first, under Horizon Europe, the European Excellence Initiative. This is an instrument managed under the WIDERA work program, but the widening part of the WIDERA, you know that in WIDERA we have the widening part, and then we have the ERA part. The ERA part is the one that has inherited, I mean, I would say the SWOFs, the extinct SWOFs, right? So basically, the European Excellence Initiative aims to foster excellence in science and value creation through cooperation in alliances of higher education institutions, such as the European universities. It is not exclusive of the European universities, so it is open to other alliances of European universities rather than those already funded with Erasmus+. But you should bear in mind that the center of gravity of this instrument is widening countries, okay? But still, it's an action that aims to increase competitiveness and visibility of higher education institutions in Europe, creating critical mass in key areas, such as, for example, the green transition or the Horizon Europe missions, just to give you a little bit of how it is focused. So, center of gravity, widening countries, thematic, open, but, you know, following the green transition or Horizon Europe missions. So basically, what is expected from this call is institutional reform and upgrade of the higher education institutions from the research and innovation angle. So it is pretty much similar to the SWOF's call for proposals, institutional reform, yeah, modernization of research careers in the higher education sector, also, you know, upgrading interoperability within sectors, and acceleration of digital transition of the research and innovation dimension of higher education institutions. You know, I was discussing with some of you during the lunch break about, you know, building this digital campus. So that could be an example, you know, of supporting actions to accelerate the digitalization of the research and innovation dimension of organizations such a university. Let me give you a few examples, because this call that you can see here now, this call now is closed. But just to give you some figures, 59 proposals were submitted to this call this year. Well, actually 61, but 2 were ineligible. So 59 proposals were submitted. 32 out of those 59 proposals were above threshold. And from those 32, 12 were European university alliances. So that means that, you know, this instrument is suitable for European university alliances, and not only that, European university alliances are an excellent candidate for the European Excellence Initiative. So this call is now closed. There are no plans to publish a new call of this initiative in 2024, but there is a new call coming on 2025. So I encourage you to keep an eye on the work program 2025, 2027. I encourage you to keep contact with the representatives of your national representatives, your representatives in the program committee, to follow up on the work program, because this call for proposals is coming. Okay, we have another call for proposals which is actually opening in December this year. It is also linked to the European Excellence Initiative, and it is titled Acceleration Services in Support of Universities. This call will open on the 6th of December and will close in March 2024. And basically what this call will support is will support institutions to make progress in institutional change in specific area actions. For example, strengthening research careers, gender equality plans, reform of career and research assessment, open science, and this is explicitly outlined in the call for proposals, institutional strategy development in research and innovation. So again, we have here a call for proposals which is supporting institutional reinforcement of the research and innovation dimension of organizations, higher education institutions. Yeah. Example of acceleration services that this call for proposals will intend to support: knowledge platforms, coaching services, virtual meeting places to enable connection with peers, not only between universities, but also with actors from surrounding environments. And these acceleration services will call for big consortia of individual higher educations, networks or alliances of universities and surrounding ecosystem actors or umbrella organizations of higher education institutions. Yeah, important. You can take a look to the work program because it is in the work program now. Proposal should take into account existing assessment tools, for example, Innovate tools. Those of you who have participated in the EIT Innovative initiative, this is something that will be also taken into account. Tools developed under projects funded in Guaidera 2021 and 2022, and tools developed under SWOFs projects. So, the call for proposal has no name and surname, but I think it gives quite a lot of information, and it's something that I really encourage you to go for it. It will open on the 6th of December, and it will close on 12th March. We expect to fund 4 grants. It's like 2.5 million per grant, up to 3 years duration. And the last example that I would like to give you is a very interesting pilot that we will launch in 2024. So this is a topic which is part as well of the Guaidera Work Program 2024, but it is a topic that you will not find yet in the work program because this is part of an amendment process where the program committee is now in the final stage of refining it and making it definitive. So I am afraid that I cannot show you more information yet, that the one that you can see there in this slide. Yeah, but still I would encourage you to keep vigilant and to keep contact with the national representatives from your program committee, because the amendment is expected to be adopted by March next year. So this is a pilot that is planned to be launched in May 2024. So maybe by the end of March or beginning of April, you would be able to see reflecting the work program. So it is intended to be launched in May 2024 and to keep it running until October 2024. So basically, this call will support the implementation of the EU framework for research careers. You may know that now the Council has a proposal for the adoption of communication on attractive and sustainable research careers. So this call for proposals will support the EU framework for research careers, will be supporting organizations. The topic will not be supporting research or researchers' salary or researchers' mobility. For that, we have an excellence program called Maria Skłodowska-Curie Actions. So this will be targeted to organizations, meaning institutional transformation again through the reform towards the implementation of standards for attractive and sustainable careers. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, this call will be targeting different research and innovation labor markets players to join forces for these attractive careers, and will focus mostly on early career researchers. So to tell you a bit more about what we expect from this. So this call has a particular title, which is Talent Ecosystem for Attractive Early Career Researchers. So it's a kind of new concept that basically aims to connect, on the one hand, research training providers, such as, for example, universities, and research and innovation employers of any kind. Could be research institutes within a university, or could be private sector, or could be the public administration. So research training providers with research and innovation employers. So basically, it calls for large intersectoral consortia. That's the first thing, that it will combine both sides, I would say, of the market, the offer and the demand. So on the other hand, another expected outcome is the implementation of standards for attractive and sustainable research careers. And here, the framework of reference, is the Charter for Researchers. So it is to put in practice, to develop and put in practice standards based and improved from the Charter for Researchers in relation to attractive and sustainable research careers. And in improving competencies, matching skills with sectors outside academia, better employability, and so on and so forth. In relation to talent ecosystems, I can give you an example of what we mean by this. So there is a definition in the call, you will see when it is published, but a talent ecosystem of researchers needs to be understood like an interconnected system that brings together various elements of the research talent management. It can be thematic, so universities, companies, public administration, okay? So it can be thematic. For example, can be targeted to research and innovation on climate, on pharma, on the automotive industry. Can be targeted thematic-wise, or can have a more comprehensive target. Yeah, and it is designed to be, to adapt to evolving needs. It has to be agile, where the flow of researchers, early stage researchers between academia and between other stakeholders from different sectors, non-academic sectors, should be agile, and there should be, a flow supported by the institution. So organizations that would like to participate in this call for proposals either or should have the human strategy for resources label, or should commit to receive the label and to apply the Charter for Researchers within the grant duration. That's a requirement of the call. So again, the action does not support salaries or mobility of individual researchers, but supports activities that lead to organizational changes. Example of activities that institutions can develop with funding from this call for proposals could be the mapping of challenges, for example, could be the development of action plans, again, to bring organizations in line with the Charter for Researchers. You see that this is something, okay, this is reinforcing the research and innovation dimension of universities, but very much focused on researchers' careers. Okay, could be the identification of resources for implementation and scaling of the quality label, the HR quality label, and could be also networking and relationship building for connecting the talent ecosystem actors. Could be, of course, on a practical level. I can give you a practical level. An example on practical level could be, for instance, that my institution is going to implement the research comp that you may be familiar with, which is the framework of research competencies recently launched by the European Commission. I want to implement that at an institutional level, okay? And I will design specific training and career development activities together with other sectors to implement that, okay? Could be also the establishment of career services, additional career services to what you already have in your organizations, training systems for early career researchers, the involvement of the non-academic sector in these training activities, and so on and so forth. So grants, it is not yet sure how many grants will be awarded. Probably something like 10 or 12 projects might be awarded. and with a duration of up to 3 years. So these are this is what I can see in the future now, or this is what I can tell you about the future now. SWOFs won't be continued, but still, I hope that you see reflected yourselves in the opportunities that I showed you here today, because apart from Erasmus+, indeed, there are funding opportunities in the very short term for supporting the research and innovation dimension of European universities. You know that we are now in the process of defining the 2025-2027 work program, and also already FP10. I don't know what FP10 will bring, actually. Maybe it's a little bit too early. But up to 28, 29, I think that there are and there will be opportunities for research and innovation of European universities. That's everything from my side. I'm very happy to take any questions if you have any questions. So thanks very much.
Thank you for the presentation. Is there any question or comment? Céline?
Thank you very much for this. I have a question which doesn't relate directly about funding, because we know where we are about these funding opportunities for the European universities as part of Horizon Europe. It's more about the work with which has been asked to us with Technopolis and with the forum and all the questionnaires that we spend lots of time within our universities, because it has been asked as an alliance to answer, but it was personally each universities related to HR or open science questions. All this work has been done. What will the what will the European Commission do with it? And will you extend the questionnaires to the other fields of the modules, because only 3 modules out of 6 have been within these questionnaires? And this is the question, and just a little remark about that is that all the alliances, I think they really try their best to answer and to work with the European Commission also for policy making. This has been a great effort which has been done because it was on the top of all the other things. So how did you see this from the European Commission perspectives, and will you still do this work even if there is not any more funding as such with the alliances? Thank you.
You know that feedback to policy for us is an important part of our job. So you know that the Commission defines the policies. We, in REA, we implement the policies. But we also contribute to the policy cycle by giving feedback, because at the end of the day, the ones that know the most about the projects are the executive agencies, which are the ones implementing the actions, right? So we have this collaboration with RTD, in this case, with the Commission, where we feed in information related to policy, so that help them and help us define new policies and identifying maybe designing new funding instruments, yeah? And how is the policy made? So, you know, you have these policy briefs that you deliver in the frame of your projects. That's very valuable to us because we really study those policy briefs, and we pass those policy briefs on to our colleagues in RTD, you know, for them to keep on building on what has been done. But apart from that, we have like additional activities, and one of them is all the information that we have been recently asking, you know, to RIS4CIVIS and to other European alliances. You know that in May 2023, we published a report on the progress of European SWOFs related European universities projects Pilot 1. That was published in May, and it was It was produced by REA with the support of external experts. So basically what we did there was to make a screen exercise of the European University pilots, or the first pilot, and then to identify good practices and tangible results that could be used as an example for further improvement of the pilot 2 or other actions to come in the future. Yeah. We are now working on a second report that it's scheduled to be finalized, at least the draft, by December this year. We are working also with experts, some of them the same experts involved in the first report. Actually, some preliminary conclusions of this second report that we are working on now will be presented tomorrow by 3 experts, yeah? Independent from Technopolis and from Tetra Tech, will be presented tomorrow. So the idea is to do the same exercise that we did with the pilot 1, now with pilot 2. So to have the complete picture of good practices and really very good tangible products produced by the 41 European University Alliances. So, and what is the, I would say, what is the target of this report? First, you, the European University Alliances, first thing, so that you can have also like a wider picture of what have been doing or what have done other university alliances. Second, the ERA Forum. The ERA Forum, which is, it's one of the governance structures of the in the implementation of the European Research Area Policy Agenda, so the ERA Forum as well. Of course, the Commission and us, because that help us improve, from the agency side, implementation of new projects, and from the Commission side, what has worked, what has not worked, what can be improved, how can we improve, what will we need to improve that in terms of, I don't know, new actions maybe in next framework program, etc. Right? I know that it's time consuming and we're asking a lot of information, yeah, but we strongly believe that it's for the benefit of everybody. And tomorrow you will have the chance to see some of those preliminary results, which I think it will be very much interesting because we will be showing pilot 2, also some additional information, but I don't want to make a spoiler of this. Tomorrow will be the presentation. But basically, I don't know if I gave an answer to your question, but basically, we want that information to design new actions. I mean, to make it simple.
We presented this morning the preliminary recommendations that we did as part of RIS4CIVIS, but it will be deliverables for in 2 months, let's say, finalized. So it doesn't fit with exactly the same calendar that you are presenting, and the over 17 universities are more or less in the alliances, sorry, are in the same calendar. So how will you then take into considerations the outputs of the first step of this project?
Yeah, they will be not be, of course, some recommendations, because there is no possibility to take recommendations from something that you will deliver in 2 months' time. So maybe they will not be taken into account in this exercise, but this is not the final exercise of anything. Every year we have like, I can tell you that we have what we call a feedback to policy plan, where we plan what will we do in terms of policies within 1 year. We are now working on the feedback to policy plan 2024. I mean, it is not official, but there are a number of priority themes that we will be working on. I can tell you a few examples, but I don't want to go beyond, yeah? Research assessment, for instance. Research management and acceleration services. This is something that we want to work on. Also in the frame of the ERA policy agenda, yeah? So, I mean, there is no reason to worry, because if the policy recommendations that you are giving us are not taken for this report now, which is a good practices report, mostly, they will be taking in the future, you know, because our feedback to policy activity is continuous. So every year we have, and the priorities are defined on the one hand by the Commission, but also, of course, according to the, in this case, to the ERA policy agenda and the implementation of the different actions. Yeah? So maybe maybe you don't find a logic, but we find the logic, because sooner or later because sooner or later it will be used. Okay. I mean, it's not paper on the shelves, you know. It's something that will be, yeah. And actually, for example, I can tell you that for the report that we are working on now, we are feeding the report, or the experts are feeding the reports with recommendations from projects already ended as well. So, you know, it's like a continuous process. I don't know if I gave an answer to your question.
And may I ask last thing? It's more foresight. Now we are in the exercises of assessing Horizon Europe to prepare Framework Program 10. What will be your advice or your recommendations to us as an alliance to contribute, let's say, to this next framework program? And the messages from the European Commission are rather mitigated concerning the DG research concerning the alliance. Do we have a weight as an alliance more than what we will do individually as a university? So in short, is it worth for us to do these exercises to contribute for FP10? And then yes. I stop here.
I think that you can do, I mean, definitely going as an alliance, you know, is much more effective than going individually. And actually, if you go as an umbrella of alliances, it's even more effective, yeah? This is the case of the event that we'll have tomorrow, 33 alliances together doing something. I think that something good, you know, will come out of that. But I would suggest to get involved, if not already, in the ERA Forum. I mean, your national representatives in the ERA Forum, because this is one of the key governance of players that really fit into the ERA policy agenda. You know that the current ERA policy agenda runs until, it's running until 2024. So now we are working on the post-2024 ERA policy agenda. We are working on seeing which of the current 20 actions will remain, or if new actions will be added. The SWOFs projects and European alliances are very much connected to the ERA policy agenda through different actions. So I can tell you, I personally attend the ERA Forum meetings myself, together with the colleagues from the Commission, and it's something that really fits and will fit into FP10. So that would be my, that would be probably my first advice, to reach your national representatives, and also to take advantage of the different fora, the 4EU1, the 4EU2, creating the frame of the European University Alliances. Yeah. And apart from that, to keep close contact with your national representatives in the WIDERA Program Committee, because I understand that most of the funding opportunities for European universities, research-wise, may come from that part of Horizon Europe. Yeah. And yeah, that would be my humble advice. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there a last comment or question? If not, thank you very much for all this information and presentation, Jorge. And we will continue to the next step.
Thank you.
So we will. Julie, tu reprends ou... Bah, allez.
Thank you very much. So now we're gonna have this inaugural launch of the Research Council, which is the CIVIS body that will take over all the research and innovation aspects of the CIVIS Alliance, and we'll try to integrate all the recommendations and conclusions from the RIS4CIVIS project. So I'm really glad to welcome Professor Chris Pearce from the University of Glasgow and Professor Philippe Delaporte to introduce this research council.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that presentation. It was good to have that look back and acknowledgement of RIS4CIVIS as well as the look forward. So actually, we want to do a little bit of rearranging if we can, because we're just about to launch the Research Council. And so what we would like is if we could have the vice rectors or those representing the vice rectors on the front. If we've got any others that are not at the front, if you could come down and join us at the front, that would be fantastic. Just to reflect the occasion. Anyway, anywhere you like. Okay, so, well, it's fantastic to be here. As you can see, my name is Chris Pearce. I'm the University of Glasgow's Vice Principal for Research and Knowledge Exchange. It's a huge privilege for Glasgow to take on the leadership of what will be the new Research Council for the first 6 months. Fantastic to be here. And I think it's really clear that we are building on extraordinarily strong foundations, and that's been pretty apparent from this morning. But I think what we would like to do is, I think, just have the inauguration in two parts. I think I'm going to, first of all, I want to thank Philippe for his leadership of RIS4CIVIS, and also ask him to just make some reflections on RIS4CIVIS. And then I will then share with you the terms of reference of the new Research Council before we then get into a discussion. I'm conscious that we're here after lunch and you might be starting to feel a bit sleepy, but it's absolutely vital that over the next 2 hours that we put a lot of energy into thinking about how the new CIVIS Research Council will operate, what it will focus on, how it will make an impact quickly. Because there will be opportunities, as we've just heard, there are opportunities coming down the line, and we need to actually, with a lot of competition, we need to position ourselves to take advantage of that and to build on the foundations that we have seen with RIS4CIVIS. It's absolutely vital that we don't take our foot off the accelerator, that we keep the momentum going. So for the next 2 hours, that's our job collectively to give some thought to all of that. I'll give some introductory comments, but first of all, Philippe.
Thank you very much, Chris. So just a few words about the way we manage, first, the way we manage RIS4CIVIS, because it's some kind of change between the monitoring committee of RIS4CIVIS. We move to the research committee or research board. Council, you're right, not yet, to the research council. And I think they don't have exactly the same role. RIS4CIVIS, there are many people involved. You saw that we run in parallel 6 modules in each through 3 work packages. Each module there is 8 partners, and behind the 8 partners there was 10, 20, 30 people working to collect data, arrange data, and so on. So we need a strong organization to manage that. So we have 3 committees, especially the executive committee, which gathers all the module leader and work package leader. And then we have the monitoring committee, which take decision, try to solve problem when there are problems and so on. But that was mainly managing a project like we are used to manage a project. So we have deliverable, we need to reach it. And I think the research council changed mine. Maybe it has to be a little bit more innovative and really try. We have a phase where we provide information for the commission, we develop tools and so on, and now we have to to change the way of management of this council. What about the feedback? You saw this. You saw this morning that we developed a number of tools, like the platform, the database for expertise, infrastructure, and a lot of, let's say, formation, education, and best practice. The first point I want to be very brief is that I tell that a lot of people were involved, but most of them were as non-permanent position. So that's the end of RIS4CIVIS, that's the end of the funding of this person for some of them, and they gather a lot of expertise. So we will do our best to keep them around CIVIS, not necessarily for the same position, but we have to pay attention. We will have the report, we will have everything, but the knowledge is supported by some people, and they are not necessarily in the next step. So that was the first point of attention. About the role, so let's say, the tools, the most difficult, to my opinion, the most difficult is to, the challenge is to motivate scientists, researchers, to look outside of the lab. I don't say that they don't look outside of the lab, they do that, but they want to do that when they want, when they need, and in the direction they want to look. And here we need to provide the tools that could help us when they need, and to build collaboration. So we start to do it, but we need to monitor these tools. If you remember at the beginning of RIS4CIVIS, we say, okay, we need people need to know each other, so we are going to launch the Cups and Cakes conference. And every 2 weeks, we have a nice conference open to all the university. And I think the maximum attendees were less than 30 people. And we tried to change the time slot. We changed everything. And at the end, we stopped the Cup and Cakes conference because it doesn't work. So that was a tool, and it was important. So the tools we developed, that will be important to monitor if they are used. That doesn't mean if they are not used, we have to stop them. We just, maybe because the communication is not good, because that's not the right way to present to the scientist anyway. But we need to monitor if the tools are well adapted and so on. And just to go back about the scientists, we need to propose some incentive to motivate them to look in the direction of CIVIS instead of looking in other direction. So in the last meeting in Marseille, let's say we suggest some proposal. I am not going to discuss them right now, because I think that will be part of the discussions that we are going to have now. But I think that's the challenge. What kind of incentive we can put on the table for the research group, for our research group, to collaborate, and before to collaborate, to know each other and to have a benefit. You know, a scientist, he don't want to go out if you ask him to do it, but as soon as he go out and start to have new problem, ask for other scientists, yeah, you have one. You know, you are sure that they are going to try to solve the problem. So I think that will be the main challenge for the Research Council, how to have this incentive. And so thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so how does this work? Yeah. So I've just put some slides up here which just remind us of the scope of the new CIVIS Research Council. So integrate all full members of the CIVIS Alliance, including the non-EU partners, so Lausanne and the University of Glasgow. Of course, University of Glasgow is now associated, but we're still a non-EU partner, and then we have Lausanne as well. So we're in good company. So that's the first thing: integrate all full members of CIVIS Alliance to make sure we're all active members of CIVIS. Provide a long-term, sustainable vision for the research and innovation dimension in CIVIS. Okay, so we're really trying to now integrate research into the activities of CIVIS as opposed to being a project on one, or to the side, a fully inclusive part of the CIVIS Alliance. Define a framework of research actions for CIVIS members and its strategic African partners, remembering that we've got other partners outside of Europe, apart from the ones I've mentioned, that we also need to include, and that brings us opportunities as well as challenges, and we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. Propose strategic guidance and recommendations to the Board of Directors via the Steering Committee on research-related issues. And then finally, advocate on key research-related topics with the European Union. So that's the Research Council scope, with the following objectives. So to support the CIVIS governance in its decisions regarding research and innovation. Build on the legacy that we've been discussing all morning of RIS4CIVIS. Share best practice and build joint research capacity among the CIVIS members. Consider how the Alliance can better develop a collaborative environment that enhances the joint training of doctoral candidates and early career researchers, and clearly a major consideration as part of the European Commission work as well. Increase opportunities for collaboration between members, which we've just heard is a challenge, and visibility of collaborative scientific outputs. We obviously can't have outputs if we don't have collaboration in the first place, so we've got to get the collaboration working, and then we've got to give visibility to the outputs. And then maximize association to Horizon Europe, and if I can just speak for the UK, I can promise you, as a university in the UK, we're under real pressure to maximize association, because otherwise we won't be part of Framework 10. There's a pressure to do that. And I suspect even from Switzerland, there's a pressure to see how the UK makes it, maximize its association, to make the argument there as well. So just to remind you, of course, I think you probably know who are the member universities across Europe, but perhaps less well known is the African partners, and the 6 of them, and worth just spending a few seconds looking at this map just to remind us. And as I was discussing this morning, you know, these universities represent very, very different types of universities. Difference in scale, difference in challenges, difference in their objectives in terms of what they're trying to achieve. So I think how we integrate ourselves as in terms of research within CIVIS is a challenge within Europe, but then if we include our African partners as well, there's other challenges, but also enormous opportunities. There will be significant funding flowing to bring European universities and African universities together to tackle some of our biggest shared challenges. And then I think probably most important, really, for perhaps a key part of what we will drive as a research council are the existing hubs. So we already have existing hubs in key areas that I don't think any of us would probably disagree with, and probably on all our agendas. And I think that these hubs offer us a real opportunity to drive forward collaborative research activities. But I think I'm right in saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Philippe, but you know, although they exist and they're part of CIVIS, they haven't really been a big part of RIS4CIVIS. Is that?
Yeah, we try to initiate some collaboration, but the hub have so many things to do, and we don't have many opportunities. Everybody say yes, we have to do it, but no concrete action has been developed. So for sure, we have to do it.
Yeah, and of course, you can see who's leading each of these hubs. So there's a responsibility on those of us that are leading a particular hub to drive this forward within the context of the Research Council. And I will pause there. So that is really the inauguration of the Research Council. So we have formally formed, and what we're going to do over the next 90 minutes is to get into some details. But before we get into the details of what we're going to do. I just welcome if anybody's got any comments or questions on the terms of reference, the scope, and the objectives. So I'll just put the objectives back up there. So if anybody's got any questions or comments about the scope or the objectives, then happy to take those. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Mariam Hansen-Edalat. I'm from Stockholm University. This is very clear. Thank you so much for this. One question that I had with me to this meeting was one of my co-workers who has been involved in the subgroup experts in Horizon Europe people. He was wondering, what is their role? Where do they come into, you know, the work of Research Council and the hubs? So there has to be some kind of a link, and I think this group is actually central for doing the job. So I'm just telling you that maybe we should have something about this subgroup as well within our objectives and how we do it in the future.
I absolutely, completely agree. It's whether we want to go back and explicitly put it in the terms of reference, we can do that. But I think certainly an action today is to have absolute clarity on how that subgroup will operate, give them a mandate, and actually be clear about their role within this. I completely agree. Absolutely fundamental. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. Thank you. Yes.
I'd like to say something actually in response to that, but more broadly, to avoid any misunderstanding as to what the Research Council actually is. If you look at the overall governance structure of CIVIS, you will note that this Research Council is new from the first pilot phase of CIVIS. And the reason why we decided to include it is to start rebalancing CIVIS between education and research, because for obvious reasons, the first few years were very much focused on education. The Research Council is really equivalent in its role in CIVIS to the Education Council, not to the Education Unit or any of those. So in other words, it's an instance which, I mean, today they meet publicly and it's about launching it and trying to find ways to make it efficient, but it will be a very strategic circles of top decision makers from all universities deciding and discussing strategies. They will not be directly concerned with how to make that happen. But the disadvantage they have compared to the Education Council is that they don't have all the staff behind the various units to implement their strategies. So in a way, you're right that there has to be that connection, but it doesn't mean that that particular group, which now is turned into an expert group, should be included into the Research Council, because that's not the point of the Research Council at all. Having said that, there is no way that we can, in the coming years, deploy the amount of energy we have in the units of CIVIS for research, because we just don't have the 14 millions that come with it. But that doesn't mean that the Research Council will be on its own, just sort of thinking and hoping for the best. Of course, there's the means that the different universities can bring to those projects, but also some of the existing units actually can be also useful to research. Take mobility, for example. Of course, its mobility is mostly dealing with student mobility, but also with staff mobility. And I'll give a very simple example. We know now that we can use the funds that we receive from Erasmus for the BIPs, the blended intensive programs. We can use those to prepare applications for Horizon Europe projects, for example. We can have teams of people working together, working online, then going all to the same place to finish the application using the Erasmus funds. So it shows how we shouldn't think too much of the wall between education and research, which in universities is absurd, doesn't exist. We shouldn't think that we are trapped by the fact that different DGs and different funding sources are mobilized and this and that. should still think of CIVIS as an alliance doing all the things that universities do. It's just that at this point, there's a strong imbalance in the means available for education compared to research. But again, this council is a strategic council. It's not a council which will take over the operations and the very practical work that RIS4CIVIS was doing.
But is it fair to say that we will need to ensure those structures exist?
Well, exactly. We need to find a substitute. Again, we can't mirror the education unit and the units of CIVIS. We can see how to make the best of them. Digital campus is another example. Yep. There's a digital campus unit. That digital campus obviously will have components which can be very useful for research. We'll have to make the best of that. So it will take a little more imagination, but something can be done for sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments? So I think just to kind of set the scene, I was proposing to just make a few introductory comments, maybe just tell you a little bit about the University of Glasgow, simply because we're here chairing this, but also just to maybe share with you some of the things that we're thinking about as a university, and I'm absolutely confident they're going to be the same things that all of you are thinking about as well. But just to kind of set the scene before we then move into a discussion session. So the University of Glasgow is established its own research strategy back in 2020. It's a fairly straightforward strategy because it doesn't mandate what we do. It doesn't it doesn't reflect on all the good things that we already do already. It's a very simple strategy that says, what are the things that we need to do better to get us into a better place that reflect the external landscape? So it has three priorities. Collaboration, because we can't work in our disciplinary silos if we're going to tackle the biggest challenges facing society. And we can't work by ourselves if we're going to fill the biggest gaps in our knowledge. Creativity was simply there because as a university, we recognize that the university is full of very creative, curious people, and yet somehow we get in the way of that as a university. Our structures, our policies, some of our many things that we do get in the way of that. So simply a recognition that we need to remove barriers where they exist to help our researchers be successful in what they do. And if they, ideas, great ideas are the core of doing great research. And I think we kind of lose sight of that sometimes. It's a danger. Research becomes a bit transactional. And then the third one was essentially about people and making Glasgow a really excellent place to develop your research career. So that was the focus of our research strategy. And it also built on some underlying principles, that the principles that we succeed as a university when our individual researchers succeed. And we need to work as a team in order to achieve that. That we focus on quality over quantity, and that we recognize that how we do our research is as important as what we do. And I think that fits very much with a lot of the stuff that we've talked about around open research today, the discussions we've had around Cora, and so on. And then, of course, very much focusing on how we support people in their careers, support them in doing rigorous research, how we support them in sharing their work early and widely, reflecting open research, and how we assess research fairly, reflecting Cora. So that's just a little bit about where we are as a university. I also thought I'd just share a few comments that have came out of the OECD Science, Technology and Innovation Outlook document in 2023. And it says in there, and I've paraphrased it dramatically, but it basically says that ambitions to mobilize research and innovation systems to absorb, respond to, and recover from crises and societal challenges as they emerge represents a distinct break from the status quo. And that governments must be more ambitious and act with greater urgency in their science, technology, and innovation policies, and that this requires larger investments, but also greater directionality in research and innovation. For example, through mission-orientated innovation policies. So, and the reason I put that up is but I do believe that this is an ongoing discussion within the research sector around the role of research and linking the focus on directionality is increasing and explicitly links research and innovation more closely to government policy like health, like digital, like security, like net zero. And so we don't just have a research policy for research sake. Our research policy is very much in the service of other key policies. And we see that in lots of ways. And I thought this was interesting, just again from a UK perspective. So this is our main funder in the UK, UKRI, and this is essentially their strategy. But the point I really wanted to make was that probably 15 years ago, their strategy would just have been ideas. Their strategy would have just been that their job is to support great research. But that's now changed dramatically over the last few years. And what you can now see is that people and careers is a very strong part of that agenda. Place is a strong part of it. Innovation, impact. All of these now are a key part of what a funder is focusing on. And I'm absolutely convinced it's the same in all other countries across our membership. And it's certainly what we're seeing, of course, with aspects of the EU. So you're familiar, of course, with the EU missions. And again, we have in the UK similar sorts of challenge areas. And then for those of you who are familiar with Welcome, which is one of the biggest charities funding health research, I think they're dispersing 16 billion over the 10-year period, so they're huge. They also have moved away from just funding discovery science to funding discovery science as well as these challenge areas. So it's definitely a shift. And I think many people are arguing, is this shift, is this what's the right balance for all of this around directionality on the one hand, where government is deciding what we should do research in, missions and challenges, and then on the other side of it is doing just fundamental discovery or curiosity-driven research, and what's the right balance, and recognizing, of course, they're not mutually exclusive. So, and CIVIS has an advisory role here to the EC on matters of higher education and research in Horizon Europe and its successor framework program. And I think that this discussion is something that we should be contributing to. So how do we respond to that changing landscape? And so with thanks to Maria, my colleague from Glasgow, I just put up, I think, what is obvious, but we need to focus on connectivity across the Alliance. We need to be doing horizon scanning and intelligence gathering of opportunities. We need to be reactive to opportunities, but perhaps more importantly, we need to be proactive. So we've got to create our connectivity and our understand where we have opportunities, perhaps even before the calls have come out or knowing that they are coming. So we certainly need to be proactive. We certainly need to be collaborative if we're going to leverage external funding, particularly from from Horizon Europe. And I think that our alliances give us an enormous opportunity to leverage funding, much greater than if we try to do it by ourselves. And of course, to do all of this, we need to nurture collaborative research skills and practice, and we've heard a lot about that today as well. So that's just some observations from Glasgow. So I just thought I'd share some thoughts to kind of shape our discussion. But really now what we want to do is open up the discussion for the next hour and a half, or open to everybody in the room. So I want everybody to feel that they've got a voice to be heard. But what I do want to do, first of all, is just to invite some thoughts from our vice rectors. And I only need you to speak for a few minutes. If there's topics you want to really delve into, we can get back to it. That's absolutely fine. But I'm keen to just give you the opportunity to reflect a little bit on RIS4CIVIS, what you think are the key outcomes, what you think we should focus on. Have you seen any really quick wins that you think we must grasp that opportunity? This is simple. With a bit of effort, we're going to have huge gains. Are there additional areas that we should focus on? And what are the challenges that we could be overcome together within the Alliance, and any other observations? And I've just repeated down at the bottom there the 6 modules just for your benefit. So And then what we'll do, just so everyone's clear, oh, wrong computer. And this is for everyone's clear, and then for everybody, there'll be some questions that we'll kind of, just to prompt a discussion. You don't have to, this is not a script that you have to follow. So, anybody who wants to go first and give some reflections?
Yes. Yes, it's on. Elisabeth Vogel-Nivre from Stockholm University. I have been part of this, I think, since the very first